Hello, everyone. We are going live today to talk about eczema relief through mindful eating. And I'm with Rachel Lucke today. She is a clean body practitioner and nutritionist. And we're going to be having a quick conversation about what mindful eating is and how can that maybe provide some eczema relief or relief for inflammatory conditions. And then I'd love to open it up to any questions you guys have so that we can make sure to answer any and all questions you guys have. All right. So this is our agenda. We're just going for 30 minutes today. So for the first 15 minutes, again, what is mindful eating? Why is it important for eczema relief? And then we're going to go into a live Q&A. So please submit your questions. We would love to hear, from you and answer all of your questions today. So Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about what mindful eating is?
Yeah, so mindful eating is one of my favorite nutrition topics to talk about, and I think it's one that doesn't get enough attention. We focus a lot in the nutrition world on what you should or shouldn't be eating, but mindful eating really brings in the how of eating. So how you eat can be almost just as important as what you eat. So mindful eating is really about slowing down. It's about getting out of your fight or flight mode of your nervous system, getting into parasympathetic or rest and digest mode, really preparing your body to start taking in food so that you begin that digestive process before you even take your first bite. So you're kind of keying into all of your senses. You're looking at your meal on your plate, you're smelling it, you're beginning that digestive process, and that's going to make digestion so much smoother. And it's also going to enable you to absorb more nutrients from your food when you have better digestion like that. So it's a really, really simple way to improve your nutrition without even paying attention too much to the content of your food, although that can be a part of it too.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we don't get that, we don't understand that. I think food has turned into, like, I don't know, something to make us feel emotionally good, and we're emotionally eating a lot of the times. And we're also not putting together that this is how our body gets nutrition. Like, this is how we actually grow. This is how we heal. This is how we lower inflammation in our body. And so there's so many important things to do here. And so, simple things like, you're eating and you're chewing like 2 bites and then you swallow, right? And so we
Yeah.
usually recommend like 25 to 30 chews per bite, or bites per chew, however you say that. And that makes sure that you masticate that food all the way and that it helps with digestion, right? So, what are some of the key things for mindful eating, Rachel? If you were going to give us like the top 3 things. So, I have an inflammatory condition, I have eczema, my gut is all dysfunctional, I have bloating and constipation. What are the top 3 things you would say for mindful eating that you would recommend to do?
Yeah. So, and that's important to know too, because mindful eating is a spectrum. Like, you could incorporate a couple mindful eating practices at even a really chaotic rushed meal. Like, there's still ways to incorporate pieces of it. So I think number one, sit down when you eat. If you are eating standing up, if you are eating while you're walking around, that is definitely going to pull your senses away from just focusing on what you're eating. Number two, I would say eat on dishes, right? Like, so don't just eat out of a container. This is especially true for snack foods. Now, we want you as much as possible, like, not eating as many packaged and processed foods. But if you are going to eat something from a bag or from a box, take it out, put it into a dish. That's going to help you with your portion control so that you're keying into how much am I eating and how much does my body want to eat right now? Because that's a really important part of it too. And I would say number 3 would be to pay attention to your body. This is a much broader topic that we encourage folks to do in a lot of different areas, but especially when you're eating, don't just kind of, like, if you're at a restaurant, for example, don't just eat whatever you're served. That may be too much food for what your body needs right now. So pay attention to, well, what signals does my body give me when I've had enough food? Or what signals does my body give me to let me know that I might need to, go back for seconds. Maybe I didn't eat enough, or maybe I'm thirsty. So paying attention to your body, and that's a process, right? Like you're sort of getting to know your body in a new way if this is not a practice that you're already incorporating into your life. So just kind of slow down and pay attention.
Yeah, so these are things we can start doing today. And I think that, we sometimes don't tie this to our symptoms and how we're feeling, and we might be complaining about eczema or other inflammatory conditions, and we're not even thinking about the mindful eating part of it. And I will talk to patients and they're like, oh yeah, I eat my lunch on the go while I'm driving to the gym, and then I go to the gym, and then I'm eating dinner in front of the TV. And how do you think your gut is going to digest properly, right? If you're driving, you're going to be in fight or flight mode potentially, and you're not going to be in a relaxed state. So you're not going to digest your food. You're not going to break it down. And then what do we need? We need those nutrients, right? And I think we need to put that together, that those
Mhm.
nutrients are really allowing us to heal. They're allowing our gut lining to heal, our liver to detoxify those toxins that are coming into our system. And so I think mindful eating is a really important thing. And I think if you even just start with what Rachel said, sit down at a table, use a plate. One thing I would add there is just pay attention to your chews. See how many times you're chewing per bite. And back when I had eczema, I was chewing, I don't know, one, two, three, probably like three chew bites and then swallowing and thinking that my body was going to be okay. So, and someone saying, yes, I have all these symptoms as we speak, someone is saying. So, tuning into that and really making some changes. And the first thing is just observe how you're eating, like observe how you're eating for the next couple of days, and then say, huh, I'm actually not thinking about the way that I'm eating or the way that I'm chewing or things like that. And so this is really something that you can start doing right now. And I think this could make a big difference. And Rachel, have you seen this? Like how fast have you seen this make a difference if we just start eating mindfully?
Yeah, yeah, and it might seem like a stretch. You might be wondering, like, how could mindful eating really have anything to do with eczema? But I would say, like, two of the main things that we see going on with our clients and patients with eczema are digestive dysfunction and stress. And mindful eating targets both of those things. And it can target both of those things literally at your very next meal. So, in the moment that you are eating your next meal, if you are somebody who feels like indigestion or bloating, or any kind of like immediate digestive symptoms right after you eat, you could change that at your next meal by eating more mindfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is something you can start doing right now today. And Rachel, what you said is really, really important, because that digestive system is really one of our first, organs that we look at with eczema. And it is dysfunctional in, I would pretty much say, 100% of eczema cases. It's typically, I mean, it doesn't have to be the most dysfunctional thing, but it can be, there's some level of dysfunction, whether it be what you're putting in your mouth, whether the lining is really inflamed because you're eating certain foods or because you took antibiotics, whether the microbiome is imbalanced. And so really tuning into the gut. And if your gut is giving you symptoms of bloating, constipation, acid reflux, etc., and you have eczema or any other chronic disease for that matter, you want to think, oh, okay, I need to pay attention to my gut. And then the place that you can start is with mindful eating. So these are things you could start doing today. And then Rachel's right. Stress is a piece of that mindful eating. And if we're eating and driving and stressed out and not chewing enough and not enjoying the food and savoring those bites, we're not going to digest properly. We're going to be in a fight or flight mode. And when you are in fight or flight, your body doesn't pay attention to inflammation. Inflammation can go haywire. And so these are all things that, mindful eating really addresses. And this is something, we're trying to give you guys tools that you can start doing today. So I would now love to open it up to some questions. Today, we're talking about eczema relief through mindful eating, but we are happy to answer any and all questions about nutrition and eczema, or just eczema in general. So please go ahead and type into the chat box right now, submit your questions, and we'd love to answer those. So let's see. Someone's saying, I have all these symptoms as we speak, and I have bad eczema on my hands. All right. So this person, Dan Mars, you have these gut symptoms and you have eczema. The conventional model is kind of looking at these separately, right? They're going to send you to a dermatologist and they're going to send you to a gastroenterologist. And what we're saying is we got to look at these together. We got to put these two together. And we have to see that those gut imbalances are actually potentially one of the root causes of your eczema. And if you do our free eczema quiz, go to the link in my bio and do our quiz. You can see if leaky gut comes up, if microbiome imbalance comes up, etc. So Rachel, for Dan Mars, who is saying, I have all these symptoms and I have bad eczema on my hands, is there any other recommendation that you would give other than what we've already said?
Yeah, so I think mindful eating does work best when it's done in the context of real whole food. So kind of if your diet does include a lot of processed and packaged things, those foods make it harder to pay attention to your body's signals, because that sugar, that salt, that fat kind of takes over your taste buds, and kind of tunes out any signals that your body might be sending. So try to move in the direction of whole real food, shopping from the perimeter of the grocery store, fresh fruits and veggies and healthy proteins. And then try practicing some of the mindful eating tips. And, if it feels hard at first, you could start just before you start eating, take a few deep breaths. Just start there. Just start with that one simple practice. Or putting your utensil down, between bites. That's kind of an old one that a lot of people have heard, but it really can help you to slow down, to be mindful about, the next bite that you take, and really thoroughly chew the one that you have in your mouth now.
Great. And someone's actually asking, and I think you kind of answered this, but we can give a more specific answer. What are the best foods to eat when you have eczema breakage?
Yeah. So when we work with clients and patients with eczema, we really focus on supporting detoxification. And the way that we do that is by incorporating more nutrients that the body needs in order to do the detoxification processes that it needs to do. So you're getting those things from, again, real whole food. We love to use the tip of eating the rainbow. So when you are putting food on your plate, really try to make it super colorful with different plant foods. So different fruits and veggies, because those different colors in those plant foods reflect the different nutrients that those foods contain. So if you're getting lots of different colors, you're getting lots of different nutrients. And if you're eating mindfully, you're going to be absorbing those nutrients better too.
Yep, we call that rainbow. It's like you're basically taking a multivitamin. If you make sure that you have a rainbow on your plate, you're getting all those phytonutrients, all those vitamins and minerals. And then the other thing I really love for eczema, you want to think about protein, because your body basically needs protein to heal that skin when you have a lot of open wounds. So Rachel, what is the calculation? Like, how do we figure out how much protein we should be eating on a daily basis?
Yeah, so it definitely varies based on your age, your activity level, kind of where you are in terms of healing process. I usually say for most people, for most adults, if you're not eating enough protein already, start with 30 grams at each meal. that might be a big jump for a lot of people. It's going to, if you're having 3 meals a day, it's going to get you to around 90 grams per day. If you add in some snacks with some protein, you're probably hitting around 100 grams a day. That's a good starting point for most people. Again, it's going to really vary based on your weight as well, how active you are. But if you're not eating enough, that's a good place to start, because you don't want to jump up too much too quickly, because then you are going to have some digestive issues. So work up slowly.
And can you give us an example? Because I think sometimes someone's like, oh, 30 grams per meal. It's like, what is that? Like, can you give
Yeah.
us an example of like how much is a chicken breast?
Yeah.
How many grams of protein?
It's probably more, it's a bigger portion than you probably think. So a lot of people, for example, if you're eating eggs at breakfast, people might eat 2 eggs. There's about 6 to 7 grams of protein in an egg. So you're only getting like 12 to 14 grams of protein at breakfast if that's kind of all that you're eating. With a chicken breast, and I like to think of it as like the rule of 7. So there's about 7 grams of protein in an egg. There's about 7 grams of protein per ounce of animal protein. So if you're thinking about a chicken breast, for example, so if you have like a 4-ounce chicken breast, that's going to be about 28 grams of protein. So that's a good portion to shoot for.
Yeah, and sometimes people find it hard to get, that much, let's say animal protein or even vegetable protein. So sometimes we love whole food if possible, but sometimes, it can be helpful to supplement with a protein powder. We have one at Clean Body called the Clean Body Protein, and it's made from bone broth protein, and there's nothing else in there. So there's no sugar and other things in there. And you can just kind of mix whatever you want in there. So it's nice and clean. So that's an option too. So yeah, protein. And we really need to remember protein, breaks down into amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of like everything in our body, basically. And if we're trying to heal our skin, we need protein. The other thing I think is lacking for a lot of people are omega 3s. Omega 3s. And omega 3s are essential fatty acids. These are really important for healing our skin too. Our skin has that nice barrier that fatty acids can help. Rachel, where can we find omega 3s, both animal and plant based?
Yeah, so your animal sources are going to be in seafood. And you need to be careful with seafood. Unfortunately, in our world, a lot of seafood is full of contaminants, heavy metals, just nasty toxins that are in the water. So we like to recommend that folks go to the Environmental Working Group. They have some really good resources about healthy seafood. But generally, like, we love sockeye. Wild sockeye salmon is one of the best. Sardines, if you can, practice having some sardines in your life, they're really, really healthy food, super rich in omega-3 fatty acids. And then plant-wise, so you're getting, there are different types of omega-3 fatty acids. So you're getting different ones from those seafood sources versus the plant sources. So it's good to get a mix of both. But things like chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, hemp seeds, those are all great sources of omega-3 fatty acids from plants.
Yeah. And if you're finding that you're having a hard time getting those into your diet, that's where supplementation can be helpful. But of course, we want you to eat those foods, whole foods, always first before you ever think about supplementation. But sometimes it can be hard to get those in, especially if you don't like the taste of fish, or you can't have those seeds that we talked about. So we also do have a product called Omega Essentials, or a really good omega-3 supplement is what we would potentially recommend if you're not getting that. And then make sure it is by reputable companies, so that, they're testing for things like heavy metals and things like that. About sardines, one of the foods we don't like you to eat because of heavy metal content is tuna. And so I've actually done, like, how we have a tuna salad, I've done a sardine salad, and it was actually pretty good. So, that's something you can try, especially if you're trying to avoid, which we want you to avoid, those high mercury fish.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I do a lot with sardines. And if you're trying to like get away from tuna salads into like a healthier version, I love using like wild sockeye salmon, and you can mix in sardines with that. The salmon is a little less fishy than the sardines, so kind of mixing them can really help. And then, putting things in there to make it taste good. I love to use fresh herbs, capers, dill, and lots of lemon juice. Lemon juice can go a long way with making fish more palatable if that's something that you're trying to get used to.
Yep, absolutely. And someone's asking, do I stay away from frozen foods?
Hmm. That's a really good question. So some frozen foods are great for you. They have just kind of taken the fresh food and like frozen it in time. So it still contains, a lot of good nutrients. It's a quick and easy way to prepare veggies and proteins. So it's good to have on hand as like a backup when you need something quick and easy. I would just say make sure that you're reading the labels, and this is true whenever you're buying any kind of food in a package. Read the ingredients. So don't just read like the big print, like marketing terms that are on the front of the package, but flip it over, read the ingredients, and see what's actually in there. So like if you're buying frozen veggies, for example, great. Make sure they're organic and make sure that the only ingredient in there is the vegetable that you're buying. There are some brands that will add like fake buttery flavors and like preservatives and seasonings in there too. So we would say avoid those and just focus on, the frozen real actual food.
Yeah, and I think it's a great choice, especially if you're having a hard time meal prepping or getting real vegetables can be hard because you have to chop them up, you have to wash them and all of that. So in if that's not an option, I think frozen food is a great option, but you do also want to know that there may be some nutrient loss there, right? So with the whole fresh foods, you're getting kind of like the most enzymes and nutrients and things like that. And then when they're frozen, you could have a little bit of nutrient loss there, but it's still better than getting, like a TV dinner or something like that, especially if you're just using those packaged vegetables in a dish, so and I think that can make it easier. And for some of this, it is also about, hey, let's make it doable, something we can do for
Mhm.
the rest of our lives. We don't really like to think of changing our nutrition as a diet. It's like, what's a great nutrition plan for me? What's doable based on my lifestyle? And that's what we really like to do when we work with clients. We're like, okay, tell us about your lifestyle. Tell us what you like to eat. Tell us what, you love hamburgers. Okay, let's kind of figure out, well, what can we do that is whole food, healthy, that may give you a hamburger like taste, and we like to work with you on that. All right. Hi, I have dyshydrotic eczema, the kind that's super itchy and blisters and breaks and bleeds sometimes. Any recommendations? Any food groups I should avoid? I hear citrus, soy, and dairy. So, first off, we're talking about mindful eating. And what I have seen with dyshydrotic eczema is a really interesting correlation of stress being a really big part of dyshydrotic eczema. I had a case, a pretty amazing case where she had really bad dyshydrotic eczema. We did everything. We worked on diet, we worked on detoxification. But then there was one thing that was really big in her life is she was working for her family company, and that was causing her a lot of stress. So in the beginning, we kind of did everything from detoxification, food, and she actually quit her job and decided to not work with the family company anymore. Everything cleared up. Okay. So 3 months, everything cleared up, 3, 4 months. She was on her way. And then 6 months later, she gets back on my schedule. I'm like, what happened? And she's like, it all came back, Dr. Fong. And I didn't change my diet. I kept all the detoxification things that we were doing. But the one thing is, I went back to work with my family company and I'm
Oh.
super stressed out again. And so that was one of the first cases I was like, that's really interesting. And then after that, I've had so many cases that like there's always some kind of stress, whether it's work stress or trauma or something like that, with dyshydrotic eczema. And one day I want to kind of figure out what the exact correlation of this is, but maybe there are meridians that are, running through these areas where if we're stressed, those can get stimulated. Maybe this is the body's way of just kind of pushing everything out peripherally. Who knows? But I have really seen this clinically. And so, first off, I would say look at stress. If you are stressed, if you have a lot of stress, if you have a lot of trauma, this might be something to look into. And this is something that we do, when we assess our patients and clients, we're kind of looking at all these potential possibilities as to why you have the issues you're having. And we're really big on root cause. We don't just want to give you something to silence those symptoms. But I do think food is part of it. And the mindful eating, especially, I think can be really important. And Rachel, would you say any food groups are important in eczema in general, or maybe even specifically dyshydrotic eczema?
Yeah, so we do usually ask most people to avoid gluten and dairy and added sugar, caffeine, alcohol. Those are kind of the big ones that right off the bat we want you to pull back on as much as possible. And then, as we address some of that deeper healing, once your body is more resilient, we may be able to add some of those things back in. Being mindful of like the dose, right? Sometimes the dose makes the poison. So it might be that, if you go out to eat once a month and you have a little dairy, you're fine. But if you try to incorporate it, on a daily basis, it's just too much for you. But those are kind of the main ones, especially the sugar. The sugar just wreaks havoc in so many ways. It affects your gut health. It affects your blood sugar, which can affect your mood, which can create more stress. So that's a big one.
Yeah, and when we're stressed, we are going to crave more sugar. We're going to crave more sugar. We usually crave things that maybe are more inflammatory, like baked goods and things like that. So I think it's all tied together, but those are definitely some foods that can be helpful. And she says, yes, I am a nurse and suffered from severe postpartum depression. That makes sense. And now a mommy of two under two. Oh my goodness. Then
Oh,
yes, there is a lot of stress with that just in general. And that's normal. Like that's not abnormal. Having two under two is difficult. And it does get better once they get a little older. And actually, it's wonderful that they're so close in age. But right now, this can be very stressful. And yes, I start scratching, she says, the same area when I'm stressed, my hands. Yes. And I'll be on with patients and they're like talking about their stresses and they're like scratching as they're talking. I had this too. So I had the eczema on my hands and I had some dyshydrotic eczema actually. I have a picture that where I'm pregnant and it's on one of my posts where you can see all the eczema on my hands. And yeah, the stress piece is really big. So there's a lot we can actually do there in terms of even supporting the system. If there is postpartum depression, there are things I would want to think about, like are your hormones balanced? Are you getting enough nutrients to create the right hormonal balance? And sometimes postpartum depression could be due to things like, hormonal imbalances, not enough progesterone, even nutrient imbalances where you're not making enough of the neurotransmitters, especially if you're breastfeeding and you're kind of giving away all of those nutrients. So there's a lot we can do here. And we would love to, do some testing because we kind of want to see, we don't want to just guess. We want to really understand, what are the real root causes for you. So some testing I might recommend as well too, Alyssa, would be really good. And, let's support you through this time because, this time can be difficult, but it's also so enjoyable. And, again, having them so close in age is so wonderful. And you'll see them be really close. So, okay, good. We've been avoiding foods my kids are allergic and sensitive to for many years. This summer, I just let them eat everything and anything except gluten, and their eczema went away. Do kids outgrow allergies? Ooh, Rachel, this is a good question.
yeah, so they definitely can outgrow them. And we usually caution folks against, a diet that's too restrictive, especially for a long period of time. So when we work with folks, we're really doing sort of a modified elimination diet where we're pulling stuff out so that we can then reintroduce it and really get some clear data about whether or not it is a trigger for you. Because everyone's different and everyone gets triggered by different things. So especially with kids, like we want them having a healthy relationship with food and with their bodies. I love trying to introduce mindful eating to kids really early, because I think they're really prone to like wanting to just have a snack all the time and just kind of walking around while they're eating something. Or, they want to be like watching their tablet while they're having dinner. So if we can discourage that stuff, early on, it just makes it easier for them in the long run.
Yeah. And it depends, because if you have removed those foods for a while, what could happen? And I don't know if you did other things like gut healing supplements and things like that, but it's possible that the gut healed because you took away those foods. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that you should go wild on all like sugar and gluten now and dairy and all that. But eating a really healthy diet is good. But if they were allergic before, I would say to proceed with caution. Like, don't have them eat that allergic food all the time, and bringing it in, like twice a week might be a good kind of starting point. Sometimes when you bring those foods in and you just bring them full force and they now eat them all the time, and they used to be allergic to them, now you could see this inflammation start to rise again. And then you might notice that they're going to get, allergic or inflammation overall. So that's something that, working with a nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor or something like that could be really helpful. And then potentially, even if when they reintroduce the food, like let's say they were allergic to eggs and dairy and all that, you brought it all back, you may want to just do some testing, 3 months down the line to see if they're having any reactions to those foods, if they're having any inflammation. So kind of thinking about it that way. And then just as Rachel said, like having a really healthy relationship and just eating really great food, and not any one food every single day, and you'll be okay, right? So like if you're doing dairy but it's like twice a week, it may not be a big deal. But if you're like dairy, 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 dairy every day, and dairy was an allergy, now that could become a problem again. Okay. All right. And let's see here. Oh, Alyssa, you're very welcome. And yes, we love this engagement too. So Alyssa said she loves this engagement. So helpful. We are going to do these every Wednesday around 11:15, 11:30. So if you can spend 30 minutes with us, we can answer all of your questions. We're doing a different topic every week. The other thing is we did write a blog on this topic. So if you want to check that out, check the link in my bio for the blog. If you do have eczema, we definitely recommend you check out our free eczema root cause quiz. The link is in the bio. This is going to be a 3-minute quiz. It's going to ask you a couple questions on your symptoms, and it'll help us understand what potential root causes could be triggering your eczema. And if you are interested in meeting me and really getting assessed individually to understand the root causes of your eczema or whatever your condition you're dealing with, we do want to offer you 30% off since you're here at our IG Live today. The link is in the bio. Book a consultation, and then you can use IGDC30 for 30% off. And we do have a money back guarantee on that discovery consultation or root cause consultation. So if you are interested, then and you kind of feel like we didn't get to the root cause, like really understand what the potential root causes are, then we are happy to, give you a refund. Okay. Oh, I see a couple other questions coming in. What do you recommend for a topical cream? Great question, Dan Mars. Go to the link in my bio. I think it should be on there. Buy Clean Skin Kit. So we have a Clean Skin topical kit. And if you don't see the link in my bio, then just DM me and I can message you after this and give you that link. But we have a Clean Skin topical kit, which is made up of 3 different products. The first is a spray called Clean Skin Calm, and this is a hypochlorous acid spray. If you spray that on the skin, that will guard against any bacterial overgrowth, and namely for eczema, we're worried about Staph aureus, and that can really cause a lot of flares and itchiness on the skin. And then we also have a spray that's a probiotic spray, topical probiotic. It's called Clean Skin Restore. That helps to restore the skin microbiome. And what you're going to see if you do our eczema quiz is that the microbiome imbalance in the gut and on the skin is one of the big reasons we have eczema and a lot of flares. And then finally, there is an ointment called Clean Skin Protect, which is an organic ointment that has a lot of different healing oils in there to really heal the skin. So check that out, okay? All right. And then someone's asking, when you get an in-depth blood panel done, what do you look for that can potentially trigger eczema or gut issues? This is a great question. We actually did an IG live about this a couple weeks ago on labs. So check that out. You can either go to my reels and check the reels, and it says something like lab testing for eczema. Or you can go on YouTube, and these are also saved there. There's also, if you go to the link in my bio, there's a link for direct order labs where you can kind of look at some of the labs that you can actually order directly. And then afterwards, you would have a consultation with me so I can kind of discuss your next steps. And then we also have a breakout of all of the labs, which if you work directly with me and my team, there are a whole plethora of labs that we like to do. But to just give you kind of a rundown, we would do potentially a blood test that's going to check your overall organ and systemic function. It's kind of like what your regular conventional doctor would do, but we're really looking at a lot more markers so that we can really see the whole picture and really see how your thyroid is functioning, not just whether we need to give you a drug. So that's the blood test. Then we have, we really like for eczema to recommend a poop test, so a comprehensive stool analysis. Potentially, if we're kind of not sure if food is causing an issue, we might do a food sensitivity or food allergy test. And then finally, a total tox burden test, which is actually looking for toxins like heavy metals, environmental toxins, and mold toxins. And with those, couple of tests, we really can understand, we can check off all the boxes. Like, is it your gut? Is it your food? Is it toxins? Is it hormonal imbalance? Is it, that you don't have enough vitamin D or omega-3s, so we can kind of check off all those boxes. But testing is not the only thing we do. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about the other thing we do, which is journal. We look at journals. So tell us about that.
Yes. So we love journals. Testing, tells us a lot, but we also care about what you're doing and how you're feeling. So we ask everyone who's working with us to journal in our app, and we just ask you to take photos of stuff, basically. So we want to see photos of the food that you're eating, and we just want a picture of your plate. So, you don't have to, usually we can tell what it is. We also, this might be a little surprising and uncomfortable for some folks, but we want to see pictures of your poop. We get so much information from what your poop looks like. And if you're not already looking at your poop and you don't know what your poop looks like, that's something else that you can start doing today or maybe tomorrow morning, whenever, is to look at your poop and just kind of, you can Google something called the Bristol stool chart. We also, there's probably a post that we have about that as well on Instagram. But it basically shows you kind of the spectrum of poop and different shapes and consistencies and kind of where a normal poop should be. We also want to see, any notes that you have just about how you're feeling, anything else that you're putting in your body, supplements you might be taking or on your body. So any like topicals that you're using, we can get so much information that you might not think to tell us. If we see it in the photo, often things stand out to us that you might not think to tell us. So we love the journal.
Yeah. So, our evaluation, I like to call it a comprehensive 360 evaluation. We're looking at labs. We're hearing your story. We're spending an hour listening to you and your story. and we're looking at your journal entry. So we're actually going into your life and kind of seeing what is affecting you on a daily basis. So I think this is really necessary because it's not just labs, and labs often don't tell us the whole thing. It's also, what's actually going on in your life. What are you putting in your mouth? What's going out your behind? All of those things are problematic. So if you guys are interested, with working with our team, I would say, go to the link in my bio. You could check our free eczema quiz. You could look at our direct order labs, or you can even consider booking a root cause consultation. Make sure to use this code to get 30% off. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today. And, we're going to be doing this every Wednesday around 11:15, 11:30. So if you guys are interested in joining us and asking your questions, definitely put it on your calendar and join us for our